every step forward. I'd like to start off by asking you all to raise your hand if you apply to these questions. Raise your hand if you have food to eat when you're hungry. Now raise your hand if you have water to drink when you're thirsty. And lastly, raise your hand if you have a home to go to at night. The questions that I ask may seem simple and kind of obvious, and that's because they're necessities that we get as in our everyday life at our fingertips. It's not something hard that we have to fight for, but people who are refugees, for example, that is not a luxury they get to live through. They have to fight in order to get clean water, they have to fight to pay for food, they have to take every job possible to even afford a home if it's not being destroyed by bombs. Does anyone know what a refugee is?
Somebody that goes from another country to another country.
Yeah, about. Like you said, a refugee is anybody who has to flee their country due to prosecution, war, or violence. Often these people are leaving everything they have and going to a brand new place with little to nothing, with random people, and they're clustered with just an overpopulated area. So as you can see, pictures like these, they're real, they exist. They have tents in the mountains, and they line up for food and drinks, and obviously just seeing these pictures alone, you can truly see how things are not easily accessible to them. The reason I'm picking this project is because I was once using Instagram, and I scrolled past a statistic that read 63% of the South Sudanese refugee population are children. I originally just swept past the fact because I didn't comprehend the vastness. 63%, it was a statistic. I was out of school. I didn't worry about reading it. But after a couple of seconds, I went back up and I had to think about it. Refugees, I understand, is a crisis right now. The refugee crisis is occurring in multiple countries. So 63% had to be a grand number. So I ended up researching it, and can you guys guess how big that number is?
Number of children?
Yeah.
15,000?
15,000?
No.
From South Sudan?
Yeah.
1 million?
Close. It's actually 1.3 million. Yes. And upon hearing that 1.3 million, that is a crazy number because they're kids under the age of 18. They're kids my age with the same goals and same dreams, but they have been placed in such a horrible circumstance where they don't get the same opportunities as me. So I actually had the pleasure to talk to Arkham Rashid, and he had traveled to Bangladesh over the winter break to capture what was going on in the Rohingya refugee crisis. He told me that he had saw nothing but camps for miles and people with little to nothing. They had nothing to entertain them for hours upon hours, so they'd follow the people who came and find something that would interest them. As you can see, they have rugged terrain, they have a muddy river flowing through, and tents are very poorly constructed. They usually have a light bulb at most that provides light, and it's provided by a small little solar panel. They have nothing in there, just flat ground. So Arkham Rashid and his team had actually raised $65,000 in money to support these refugees. That money went to building wells, it went to providing clothes such as shawls, it went to food and shelter. He actually had a pleasure of giving out lollipops to the little kids, and every lollipop he gave, he said that he felt a surge of happiness because that's one kid who got something they could never afford usually in their daily life. A lollipop, like a little dum-dum, we think is so worthless, but to them that's everything. So, hearing experiences like that, I thought about myself. I'm a 16-year-old girl, I'm a Muslim, I have a great school, I have great access to education, have amazing family members and a great tennis team and friends, and I'm very blessed with what I have. I know that I'm privileged with everything I have, and we find ourselves complaining, but little do we realize that everything we have is what we need to survive. So, seeing how privileged I am, I wanted to find a way that I could help others. Other people, they deserve to experience what I have, the basic stuff. So I had searched different organizations trying to find a way to help them, and I stumbled upon Current Foundation. Current Foundation is an organization that specializes in helping Syrian refugees, specifically youth who are usually involved in child labor, extreme poverty, and instability in their homes. I read stories as they have a section dedicated to the youth, and I was heartbroken as I read stories like Muhammad's, who is only 14, but he supports his entire family by working in a furniture shop. Now, I could never imagine being a teenager and having to support my family. It's just a tremendous ordeal, and to have that much anxiety and pressure placed upon you is unfathomable. Also, I read about stories like Aisha, who, when she was only 9, she was separated from her father because he was arrested. Being separated from a family member is just so horrific, I could never imagine it. Because of experiences like that and the bombings and everything else, she's developed PTSD as a 12-year-old. That's not normal. It shouldn't be normal, and we shouldn't be jaded by situations like these. So, reading stories like these, it inspired me to create Every Step Forward. Every Step Forward, it's changed a lot over the past 10 weeks. I've changed what I wanted to do multiple times. In fact, what I officially have done, I just came up with yesterday. So, the project is dedicated to Syrian refugees specifically right now, because right now it's the month of Ramadan, and for Muslims everywhere, it's a very important month where you try to grow and help others and improve your character. So for us, for Americans, we have food. We know we're going to break our fast with clean water, healthy food, and a family to be with us. For Syrians, they may have a family at most. They don't have clean water. They get water from their wells, and sometimes even that's not enough to support their whole community. A lot of these things aren't accessible for them. So I decided to use Current Foundation and ask them for help. And they started a program by which they're sending food baskets to refugees in Syria, and each food basket is roughly $60, and it supports one family for an entire month. And $60 for a whole month is crazy. Because if you think about it, that's $15 1 week. And for us, for one person, it's one meal if you really want to eat good. So most of the time in these packages, it's jam, it's ghee, it's wheat, it's barley. It's things that we don't think are meals, but to them, that is lavish. So I started my foundation and my fundraiser. As you can see, there is an actual link. You can scan it on your camera actually, and it brings you up to the actual webpage using the QR code. Or if you have cash, that would be accepted too. But the goal is 240, because 240 equates to 4 families, and that's 4 families who you're helping from starvation. In a country where starvation is real and it kills people every day, that's a big change. It doesn't matter if you're donating $2 or $5, you are making a difference in somebody's life. You are saving somebody. So it doesn't matter how much it is. It could be 2 pennies, I don't care, because you are making an everlasting change on a family in Syria. Also, lastly, I have an Instagram by which I'm inspired by Humans of New York. So I take a story of a refugee, specifically a youth, and I explain the standards they had to go through and the circumstances they had. And basically, it humbles you. It really shows you how grateful you are for everything. Because these kids, they have nothing, but they still find ways to find happiness. And that honestly just makes you so appreciative for what you have, because you can hit rock bottom and still be happy, and still find ways to support your family and have a loving, caring community. So check out the Instagram if you want. You can check out the WordPress. That's the blog that I created. But I'm more focused on the Instagram as I'm building it continuously. And lastly, I'd like to give a thanks to Dual School, Zach, and Miss Strauss, one of my favorite Spanish teachers. And yeah, that's all.
Yay, good job.
And if you guys want flyers, I have links to the Instagrams and WordPresses. So thanks.
I have a question.
Yeah. Oh yes. Ask questions.
What might be like one way to help them in the long term, like not just providing for 1 month?
Obviously, I feel like you have to focus on short run first, because long run is important, but you could always seek legal ways to help. You could go to the government and be like, hey, what are methods that I a random person can do. Because believe it or not, anybody can make a difference. It doesn't matter who you are. Just simply emailing somebody is making a difference.
So emailing like
Different organizations are good. A lot of people love hearing kids interested. People often fund these different things. They fund different things, and they send money to people because you never lose from giving, and people understand that. People should know that. So people are never going to be scared to give money. There's always going to be somebody who's ready to donate, and in the long run, hopefully the short run shifts to that. So, yeah, that's it. You guys want
Yeah, I am a sister. I'm SPAM teacher slash like dual school. Like I kind of oversee. I oversaw the.
This is my mom, Rosita.
I'm Katie.